Hey everyone, welcome to the latest edition of In the Arena. For this episode, we're going to cover advanced on-chain agents, and I'm joined by Luca from Base, Billy from Intuition, and Ben from Sapien. Uh, and the conversation focus will be around autonomous agents, data integrity, and decentralized infrastructure. And autonomous agents represent the next frontier in decentralized tech. To work in real world scenarios, these agents need more than sophisticated algos. They require clear identities, reliable data, aligned incentives, and scalable infrastructure. This session, we're going to dive into how three complementary projects are building the essential foundational layers to enable the next evolution of advanced on chain agents. So, Luca, Billy, Ben, feel free to give quick intro and say hi.
Any order?
Any order.
I guess I get to go first since I unmuted first. Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Noble. I'm the head of marketing at Sapien. Some people might know me through my @tag, the NFTs. And we are building human in the loop feedback training for AI models and using decentralization to really facilitate some of the awesome breakthroughs that we've seen in the AI world. So really excited to be here and a part of the discussion.
Happy to go next. I'm Billy, founder of Intuition. I really like your name, Senna. Data liquidity. We're kind of doing data liquidity stuff. We're called Intuition because we're trying to give things better intuition in all their interactions. And the way that you get good intuition about things is you get good data about them. So, if you spend every day with someone, then you go to interact with them, good intuition about how they're gonna react. And so how can we kind of scale intuition? How can we build kind of like technologically mediated intuition? And so we're kind of this decentralized knowledge graph that just anyone can post anything to, and then we just help data get to the places it needs to be. And I guess at the intersection of AI, basically, there's a couple different tacks that we're taking. So one is we're kind of acting as the registry for agents. So people are uploading their agents, they're uploading metadata about them. Agents can kind of attest to things about each other. Users can attest to things about agents, and then we get to figure out like which agents might be the right agent to fulfill a request or for the job. And then the other side is kind of personalized AI context, like portable personal context that you can kind of bring with you anywhere you go. So we got an open source MCP server. As you go and interact with Intuition integrated things, you're saving things to your Intuition, which is kind of your second brain. And then you can just bring that with you to any AI experience. Now the AI knows a little bit more about you, your preferences, your social graphs, their preferences, their attributes, things like that. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Love it. Thanks.
I can finish it off here. Good to see everyone here. Work closely with all these teams, so it's very exciting when we get together in this context. I'm Luca. I'm on the Base ecosystem team, largely leaning into AI and DeepIn, but then also helping people who are already building on Base and have been for quite some time really grow and scale their projects and help take them to the next level. What Base is, for people who don't know, is Base is growing or building a global on-chain economy. What does that mean? I think most people know Base through Base Chain. I think that vision has evolved as of 2 weeks ago to now include the Base app as well, formerly known as Coinbase Wallet, along with like a variety of developer and consumer-facing tools like Base Pay, Base Account, Base Dev, and a handful of others to help agents or any builders really fulfill kind of making the best products possible on chain. Excited to be here and thanks for having me.
Awesome. So as everyone can see, we've got sort of a wide range of decentralized agent enabling and AI enabling tools, infrastructure, systems. So that's sort of why we titled this episode of In the Arena, Advanced On-Chain Agents. I think all these three projects are really creating the infrastructure and tooling needed to advance the state of the art and what we can build and what we can create on-chain in the AI world. And so on that, I'd love to start with sort of touching on a bit of like composability in terms of identity. Obviously, composability is like one of the huge value props of doing things on chain. You can create systems on top of shared infrastructure that is, enabled everything from, DeFi, NFTs, and every other type of decentralized application. But in the context of agents and AI, maybe we'll start with identity and context. So would love to just sort of dive into like, what does identity mean in the context of agents and AI? Obviously, like everyone knows, in order to get good responses from some of these LLMs and chat models, you have to give it so much context in order to get a good answer and a usable one. So how can we use on-chain infrastructure to create more adaptive, intelligent agents on-chain?
I'm happy to go first. Mr. Data Liquidity and I go way back in the identity space, starting with Uport, which was kind of the first self-sovereign identity thing on Ethereum. And you can kind of view intuition as, we take a lot of learnings from all the work that's been done over the past decade. But I think when people think of identity, I think they oftentimes think of the identities of people, and they think of like KYC, AML, Sybil resistance. But everything has an identity. Like an AI agent has an identity, a platform has an identity, a word has, like, every single thing in the world has an identity. Not everything has, a globally persistent, unique digital identifier, which like the people on this call and probably in the audience have, which is like an ETH address. And so I think identity is it's kind of the core of like most use cases. And I thought we are going to have to solve this problem to build a lot of cool stuff on crypto. And we just kind of circumvented it. But I think it's reemerging into the spotlight, especially in the context of all of this AI stuff, because I think I can frame the importance of identity with a singular flow. So let's say you say, hey, I want to book a dinner reservation. You want to book a dinner reservation, you prompt an agent, you say, hey, book me dinner reservation. As Senna said, like, I don't want to add a bunch of context. I don't want to have like a huge prompt. I just want it to know stuff about me so that in one sentence, it just like does what I want it to do. So there's actually like 3 components of identity that are super important for this flow. So the first one is personal identity. So people. So I want the AI agent to know my preferences, my attributes, my social graph, like that. And so it's like, okay, I know you like sushi. Here's this guy you trust in the context of food. He likes this restaurant in your area. So now you get a better response. Then the next step of the flow is, which agent does that request get routed to? I think we're going to have this coordinating agentic swarm where each agent is really good at one specific thing. So which agent is the one that's really good at booking restaurant reservations? Now you need agent identity and context and metadata. So now the request gets routed to the right agent for the job. And then the last part of the flow is, okay, which platform does the agent use to book the reservation? Does it do a Google search and then take the top result, which is probably a phishing link, and lose your crypto or your credit card info? Hopefully not. So now you need platform identity and reputation and context and metadata. So just to do that simple flow, you kind of need identity at every step of everything. And so I think just expanding the concept of identity beyond people is just going to be like a really important narrative and concept and drum that we have to keep beating.
And building off of that too, I think something that we've been thinking a lot in like a multitude of different ways at base, but how each identity has value as well. Like Billy, I think you like described kind of why all these identities do have value, right? Because it is that attached social graph. Even in the example you provided, right? Like your identity as a person has value to the restaurant you are seeking out, and then that restaurant also has value as an identity. So we're not going phishing links, or you're making a reservation at a imaginary restaurant that then charges you when you're a no-show because it doesn't exist or something like that. So that's something we're thinking deeply about. And even when things like base account or the products we're working on, or the products of the people in the base ecosystem we're working on, it's just been very interesting to see all the experiments that kind of like come back to identity and like where that value has flowed. I think we've been obviously seeing a lot of things with the release of base app recently in the context of content. But again, that comes back to like who's posting that content. Who posting that content matters a lot. Right? It's actually like super, super important, and it has a ton of value. So I think that's something that's been really, really interesting, and kind of looping this back to the AI side, where we've seen like multiple AI creators now who own their own identity, and then own kind of the associated infrastructure because they're building on chain, start receiving value for that. So actually, I think there's an on-chain an AI creator that just released on Zora that's been doing like fairly well in the concepts of content. I think we saw a bunch of agents kind of releasing content around like Twitter and having a token associated with them, really kicking off about like a little less than a year ago. But actually been kind of interested in the Sapien viewpoint around identity in terms of, you know, even like data labeling. Like, I guess you guys are also like identifying like what's what. There's like this human in the loop aspect to confirm that something is what it says it is, which also has to do with identity and context in the scope of these AI models. So also curious as to your thoughts on this.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think it's also important when we're talking about like context and identity that we have diversity in perspective in training certain models and creating effective partitions between domain experience and being able to prove that on chain through like qualified reputation models. And our system of proof of quality gives you kind of an element of identity where you're through the task of participating in the AI training, you're building a quality score that then eventually could become modular, moving from one place to the next and unlocking features elsewhere. And so I think we talked about cross composability with digital identity uh, early on phases in crypto, and it just like there wasn't the infrastructure there. Like NFTs got like really lost in the weeds of just focusing on speculative buying and selling of JPEGs and not like the value of non-fungibility as it relates to digital identity. And I still think there's a lot to explore in terms of how we structure something. And I think having a platform that connects these projects and creates a unified base being a very appropriate name for an L2 at this point, I think is going to be critical for the next phase of AI, where we have, just like Billy was saying, you have these unique elements of agent speaking to other unique elements of agent and doing calls and vetting and going down the rabbit hole of everything that an agent could potentially do for you in an autonomous way. But like we need to build trust, and a part of building that trust for AI is making sure that at this stage we have humans in the loop to check and cross-check the work and make sure that we're steering the ship still and not fully taking our hands off the wheel. And so I think human in the loop will actually remain a very important factor in AI training as the years continue. And so what we're seeing is the demand go up and the demand for specialized attention in specific categories go up. And we want to provide a platform so that people can involve themselves in shaping the future of these agents.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like, I mean, with a lot of the points that you raised, and yeah, I mean, in particularly thinking about like the reputation of the labelers, right, and how that actually matters a ton for how the models decide to use that data, and like it sort of like aids in correctness and all these other things. A bit of like a hypothetical question here, like in the context of AI and agents, and as people are now talking about like, well, there's an agent that just acts on my behalf autonomously, right? So as Billy said, like maybe I have an identity as myself and maybe my agent has an identity, but what identity is that agent using when it's interacting on my behalf? Are those actions still attributed to me? Are they attributed to my agent? How do we think about like transmutability of identity and attribution of actions? When I know when my assistant sends an email, like she can send an email from my account and they don't know it's her, or she can send one from her email and they know it's her acting on my behalf. So like, how does that translate into the agentic world and as AI takes on more and more automated responsibility?
I love this one. Sorry, I'll stop going first after this one. But a lot of times I get asked about kind of Sybil resistance. And I think Sybil resistance becomes like, this is like a Sybil question where it's like, you've got projects such as WorldCoin or World now, where you get the eyeball scan and you get the credential for scanning your eyeball. And it's like, oh, I'm a unique human. Can you pass that to an agent? Like if the agent is a digital twin of you, like they're prioritizing block space for humans, it like, can I pass my human credential to a non-human to act for me? Like, I think it gets really muddy. And I actually think that the obvious answer is that should kind of be treated like you. And I think things are going to be pretty limited if, the identity of the agent acting on your behalf is, I mean, maybe there's like a caveat and it's like agent on behalf of Billy, but like maybe you don't want people to know that. So I think it gets super interesting, super fast. And I think this is a little bit of a side tangent, but like, I think what becomes more important than Sybil resistance is like proof of reputable, valuable actor in the system. Like one agent might be way more valuable than one human. So I don't really care if it's a bot. I just care if it's a productive actor in my system. And my cat is meowing, so I'm gonna go let him in. But I'll be right back.
No, building off on that point too. Like, I think that point is really interesting, just because, like, let's say like I have my world ID, or I'm a verified user of Coinbase or something. Like, I can go, in the case of like Sybil resistance, like I could still go spin up infinite wallets, and like those wallets are, I think, to most would be pretty valueless unless like they're doing something that is valuable. And I think like most people will value having agents acting, if they're specifically acting on your behalf, tying that back to the owner in some way. So maybe not necessarily like transferring your ownership, but mapping in some way, shape, or form. And like, I think that's also part of the value of like on-chain, and something that people, because like you're gonna have like a bunch of agents acting on your behalf, doing certain things, maybe trading on your behalf, maybe booking reservations. And I think you'll want to, one, like own that data, and have that all owned by kind of your verified person, if they're acting on your behalf. Or alternatively, like you could completely disassociate it and have an agent acting independently, but it will suffer from, in most cases, being like what is the history of this? This is like a random, basically like wallet that was created. It has like next to zero on-chain reputation. So I think that's also particularly interesting. We're working on this now a bit, and we have some agents using this on Base's a sub account infrastructure, where for smart wallets you can kind of set up individual wallets that map up in like a hierarchy to the original wallet that maybe stores your identity, has a series of things, and you could kind of set up permissions accordingly for like what you want to allow your agent to do. I think as we advance here, things like that will help with things like Sybil resistance. So it's like, if I do have my agent go and make a reservation for me, it's allowed in the site, and not like, what is this random wallet doing that just like is spamming the reservation tab here.
Ben, what do you think about potentially my agents helping to label data? Would that count in your system as it's like human in the loop? Like, what if I'm like, I set up my agent really well and they're associated with my identity? Could those actions count or no?
Sure. I mean, like, well, not at the moment, but there is an element of like recursion that we would want to bring to the table at some point, where as long as we're grading based on productive outputs, I think like the interesting thing with agents is you have a level of subjective and objective truth that you've got to broker. Like there's certain things that need to remain statically true, like across all accounts, and then there's this element of like personality that you want in customization that you want to allow for. And so when we're thinking about this stuff, it's like we're trying to solve a lot of the objective truth layers, and using diversity is really important, like, and have a diverse data set when we start talking about things like, let's say, like autonomous vehicles and driving, because the street rules in the United States are not the same as the street rules in the UK and the street rules elsewhere. And so, like, the truth actually changes from region to region, but like other things like syntax rules and language models can vary as well. Like, so there's this complicated nuance that goes beyond just like, oh, you know, if I was going to have it emulate a specific voice, it can do so pretty well. But when we're trying to get it towards a level of creativity plus maintaining this truth without doing a whole bunch of hallucination, like, it's still very important that humans remain a part of that and that we're not completely on a recursive system. And like recursion is part of the reason like DeepSeek and some of the other AI models made really great breakthroughs at a lower cost point. But like I said, for like some of the more specialized elements, that human frontier knowledge, not stuff that can be scraped off the internet, we need to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. And so bringing that to the table with like, you know, everybody can participate in this thing, but we need to understand where the difference is in the values of their contribution, because I can say everybody can teach, but like, you know, a 5-year-old's going to teach me something much different than you know, a 20 something year old. And in terms of domain experience, like a college professor probably has a better depth of knowledge on a certain subject matter than somebody who's just straight off the street.
One thought that came to my head is maybe one way to think about it is like, we don't say that, you know, this is Billy's computer acting on behalf of Billy. We don't say it's Billy's phone. It's like, oh no, this is Billy. The medium through which you're doing the interfacing, it kind of fades into the background. And then the identity that you're interfacing with is the thing sitting behind whatever you're using to interface. And so it's like, I kind of view AI agents as kind of, they're like a tool, just like a computer is a tool and a phone is a tool. They're just going to be like, hopefully, another tool in our arsenal to do stuff more effectively and faster and better. And so I think viewing it from that lens, like maybe it's just, that's how we should view it, is they're an extension of us. They just are a method through which we can do things more effectively. And it's not a different identity. Like maybe it has like its own IP address, like I don't know, but like, you know, I feel like they're the same thing. And then real quick on like the human in the loop stuff, like, and like that was, and the geographical diversity and like all the frontier knowledge, like that is, it gets so interesting. And I guess just like you said, you guys focus on kind of more objective truths. Like we're kind of focused on subjective statements about things, like people's intuition. That's also why it's called intuition. It's like what is your intuition about this thing? There is no truth. And when there is no truth, things get really complicated. And then you really need identity and reputation, because it's like, okay, who is saying that this wallet is a good wallet? Like there's no objectively best wallet. It's just what people think. And so like you get this really crazy recursive reputation problem when you try to figure out like, oh, what's the reputation of this person? Because the reputation of this thing is an aggregate of like all the things that it's done and all the things that people have claimed about it. And then you got to look at the people doing the claiming of the things about this. And it's like, oh, what's the reputation of those? So it just keeps nesting, but I digress.
When the snake keeps eating its tail, sometimes things get really weird. And that's where like hallucination can go like really off the rails. It's like when AI is training itself about something, but like there's a lack of clarity in there, you get some kind of hilarious results.
Yeah. Billy's a strong believer in relativistic approach to life. So I know that, unfortunately, I think Luca might have to hop in a little bit. So maybe I'll jump for a second to blockchain infrastructure. So obviously, like, would love to just hear where you're thinking from an ecosystem and AI perspective on Base about what are some of the core infrastructure toolings that we need to enable more widespread adoption and tangible use cases for on-chain agents and AI today.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming back to the identity point, in like situations where identity is not as important, I've actually think we've seen this take off quite a bit. Like you have a bunch of agents today, either rebalancing pools. Obviously, I think there's been like versions of trading agents for some time, but now there's versions that are kind of like running on LLMs and making decisions, whether like, fully autonomously or with like some human in the loop. And I think this has largely been enabled because if you're taking a bunch of on-chain actions, there's like a cost element there. So now that base is like very cheap, very fast. We've really seen these use cases start to take off. Especially like I think you've seen like agents like Giza and Mamo, and I mean there's so many others. Really focus on like the on-chain trading side. I think like that we've seen early success there. I do think kind of like one of the blockers right now to start seeing these real world use cases is this identity question. Right? Like how, if I'm going to like, we're seeing some early instances, for example, like Byte AI, which allows you to like order food through natural language and like your wallet balance. But to have things start like really truly acting autonomously on your behalf, where you also kind of like own the whole pipeline of actions and like your data and allow selectively share that with other participants. We definitely need to improve on the identity side and then also the privacy side as well. I do think there's an aspect to where you start booking literally like everything on chain, and there's things that relate to your personal life or where you're going on vacation or whatnot that somehow like ties back to your personal identity is like not something I want either. So maybe some people are okay with it, but I think we're entering a new paradigm where that is not required. It shouldn't be required. Like privacy is a right, and that's something we believe in. We're super fortunate to have the Ironfish team be part of the base ecosystem as well. We acquired that team a few months ago, and they've been working really hard on just figuring out like what are the main problems around privacy and identity that we need to solve, and then working on executing a set roadmap. So I do think to take that next step out of like, okay, we're kind of like in this on-chain ecosystem around trading, creating identity is personal human identity is like not as important for these use cases. But to work our way out of that, we do need identity, like proof of humanity. I do think like World has a very interesting approach there. There's like a series of other ones that we're also working on. And then privacy as well. I do think privacy is really important when you start bringing your, your personal data and personal reputation on chain.
Yeah, there's no way I would want everyone to see my my entire DoorDash order history. That'd be a little embarrassing. But no,
is it zero knowledge? Is this the path forward? Is it going to be like zero knowledge proofs for a lot of this, or do you think there's like other methods for privacy preserving?
I think it's TBD, to be honest. I think there's all of these seem to be pretty early in terms of it's not entirely clear on like what is most scalable. I think like ZK definitely seems like it's in the lead to some respect, but there's teams working on like interesting like FHE solutions that feel strongly about that. Actually, the Fresa team is working like on some really cool stuff around AI and like personal AI, where they're doing a lot of stuff in like a TEE. I think we're kind of like yet to see what scales well and like cost efficient too. I think that's like a really open question. Not something that we need to figure out necessarily today. I think like products like Intuition, where like you could kind of gain information from the social graph and start to prove things out that way, are really interesting, but something that multiple teams are going to be working on, including ourselves, that will hopefully be solved in the months and years to come.
any other questions for Luca? I think you might have to hop now.
Yes, I do. But thank you so much for having me. This was a great discussion. I really wish I could have stayed longer, honestly. This has been a vibe so far. So
yeah,
but enjoy.
We'll have you on again. No worries.
All right, bye everyone.
See ya.
I love that I anticipated and guessed one of the questions from somebody in the crowd.
I was trying to figure out a way to answer, but I couldn't like chat in the channel. So I'm glad that you did. Well, now that I've got you two, let's talk about human-powered data networks. would love to just sort of like dig into the details of like how you guys are both tapping into swarms of people, and ensuring the integrity scale. And, maybe we can even touch on some of the ethics of this stuff, for how we can make more trustworthy, better AI systems.
Yeah, I think the curation of intelligence is probably the most difficult aspect of it, and so it's the hard problem we're trying to solve is like creating a stick and carrot approach where you have a staking model where people are betting against the quality of their work, and then you have tranches of people initially that are there as experts that are curating that data, that are those humans in the loop to make sure that the accuracy score is correct, and then you're offloading that over time into more of the community self-policing itself and have enough breadth of experts challenging and approving other people's work to bring that to global scale. Because the real problem when you talk about things like the centralized version of what we do, which is data frontier knowledge and AI data structuring, is they have to go one by one to everybody's resume, bring them in, train them, onboarding them. It's a really arduous process, and when you need like hundreds of millions of data points structured, and you're trying to turn that around in a couple weeks or a couple months, even it's really difficult with the scale of some of these. Even if they have 3,000 people working round the clock, it's just it can be really difficult work, and it's not set up in such a way that people can come in at their leisure and do it. It's really structured as more like full-time work.
And on that, like, I think digging into some of the reputation system that really enables this, like the scaling and the quality of the data labeling, how is it like a progressive reputation system where like over time people build up a reputation? How does it stay honest? How do you identify when quality is not where it should be? How does that like negatively affect reputation? Like, walk me through a little bit of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's tranches of tasks that are accessible at different difficulties. So you have like the entry level tasks that everybody can participate in, and it typically is really easy stuff like, tell me what this is a picture of. It's like, that's a frog, that's a butterfly. When you start getting into the more complicated stuff like fix the syntax of this sentence or provide me like feedback on this formula, obviously that takes a lot more time, and so the reward structure is set up in such a way that those more complicated tasks have a bigger payout, but at the same time you're staking against the quality of your work, so you don't want to just sign up for it because it's super complicated, and you're able to like max your point allocation there. So there's all kinds of triggers, psychological triggers and gamification that you have to bake into the system to make sure that it works appropriately. But at the foundational level, it's like, yeah, you want something that everybody can do, and like I said, everybody can provide data that I think is advantageous for artificial intelligence. I mean, human robotics right now just needs basic motion data of people like moving around and waving and stuff like that. When we start getting into like the domain expertise, there may be elements where you need to KYC somebody in. I can't have somebody claiming that they can circle cancer cells and they're not a doctor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like we're thinking through all of these steps, and I think right now everyone has been able to taste like some of the entry level stuff, but we're already starting to level up the difficulty. But it is time. Like you need to spend a lot of time so people can build those quality scores, because I can't just trust the quality of your work based on like a couple weeks of spamming buttons.
100%. Yeah, Billy, and what about you? How do you guys use economics and humans to make sure that your data network has integrity and remains useful for people and agents?
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of like the marriage of the best of both worlds. Like we're not you could do, I guess you could do kind of like objective data labeling on intuition, but we're focused on, like I said before, kind of more subjective opinions about things. and like people's personal thoughts and who they are and their kind of view of the world. And so our kind of approach is we want people to add data to our knowledge graph just because it provides some utility to them. Like outside of, economic rewards, like we can talk about that later, but it's like I just want to provide people with some functional utility that it's like, wow, this is, the best tool that I have for this job. And oh, by the way, now it like also feeds into this big data set that can be used by AI to do a bunch of things. So like super quick example of that is kind of where intuition started from was I just don't have a good tool to organize all my stuff. It's like I come across a new person, coming across a new project, a new AI tool. I'm like, oh, where do I put that in my book? Do I bookmark it? I literally have never gone back to my bookmarks. I still bookmark things, but it's like I've never gone back there. So it's like, where do I save this? And where do I tag it with like, okay, save this URL and then tag it with AI developer tooling so I can find it later. And like the tag kind of adds it to a folder. So maybe you just want to create data about stuff because you're just organizing your life. You're coming across new things. And maybe you want to say you come across a new person, you're like, oh, like this guy, is awesome and I need to work with them. Or you could say whatever you want about anything, but it's just kind of saving stuff for you. And in doing it for you, it's also doing it for everyone else. And obviously in this model, like privacy is super important. Like there's a lot of stuff that I think people are actually okay with being public more so than people think. Like us crypto people who thought everything needed to be private, like people don't care that much, but there's a lot of stuff that you do want to be private, but I'll just pass on the privacy stuff for now. But then there's also kind of like this other flow where one of the things that I think is pretty cool that we have is kind of this open source MCP server, and we hooked it up to cloud ourselves, and we have this AI chat, and it just has the context of your intuition. It just knows about you. So now it's like, I just want to add stuff to my intuition so my AI gets better and it knows more about me. Like you just have this personal context. So it's like, oh, I'm going to go out and I'm going to say like, this is my favorite movie. This is my favorite genre of music. This is the, gas fee. I want high gas feeds. I want dark mode when I visit a website. I want like whatever, just express things about you. And then you marry that with the bookmarking thing. And now it's just like, oh, I'm just curating my little second brain, and I'm just doing it totally selfishly and for me. But in doing it for me, it's doing it for also, it's curating the data for the rest of the network. And then we layer in the crypto economics, which makes it even more cool, where everything that you claim on intuition, you're getting ownership of the data you create. Like you're getting actual, like we break things down into these tokenized discrete units called like atoms and triples. And so you're actually getting tokens of all the data you create. And then as other people kind of say similar things, everything's on bonding curves. So like the value of the shares that you have of the data go up as more, like, let's say you're the first person to say, I like this artist, and you're saying it because you want your AI chat to know more about you. And then a million people come in and like the artist after you actually make a bunch of money. And then we also kind of like are going to monetize the read side, where person does a query, data that you've added to the graph gets traversed with that query, person pays a cost to do the query. We can flow the revenue that's being generated from the read side of the data back to the people who contributed the data in the first place. So now you're like economically incentivized also to express useful opinions about things or truths about things. But that's kind of our mindset.
It's interesting. I wish we still had the base team on here and Luca, because it's like, I know they're trying to do a lot of stuff with like tokenize all content and stuff, but like what you just said seems like an alternative way of like liking an artist or liking a piece of a thing gives you some economic return in it that's completely distinct from the actual object itself. It's like the digital sort of ephemeral representation of that thing on your system, but it's like an alternative revenue stream almost.
I think Zora's doing a good job of that too, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like your wallet becomes your on-chain identity in a lot of ways. And so I think what's really cool about anybody who's had a preview of the new base app, the first thing it prompts you to do is create your name.base.eth. So in doing that, it really is pushing you to have something that's better than the cryptographic address that's more akin to an identity.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Maybe we can, so would love to talk about like governance and accountability in some of these AI systems too. So obviously, like Ben, we spoke a little bit already about how, you know, your system incentivizes accuracy and, you know, sort of like retains more difficult or specialized tasks to those that have earned their way to doing them. But like, what sort of governance do you have, if any, on like where understanding what is good and bad? So like, what is right or wrong in some of these senses? Is there like an objective measure? Is it decided by committee? Walk me through sort of like the inverse case of like if someone makes it to a level of expertise and maybe like starts contributing incorrect things. How do you know they're incorrect?
Yeah, I mean that's the difficult element, and that's where we still need to have like a slow ramp towards the full decentralization function. Like, there's a level of it you can do with automation, and there's like key triggers you can look for. But really, what you need is just like a scale of experts that there's a consensus that's forming on what is accurate and what is good, and consensus is what blockchain is all about. So like that works here in this case. But like reputation is something that we're seeing a lot of people explore, from like social fi all the way into like AI elements, because your on-chain reputation is functionally like not just like an index of what you spent money on, how good of a trader you are, but it's going to become, in my opinion, like a virtual resume, where it's like, what do you work on, where do you spend time, what do you like, what do you collect, what concerts do you go to. The more we move into like this Web3 universe, the more like we're able to bring more of those elements on chain, and then we're able to experience the cross chain composability that frankly we had been talking about but just didn't have AI in a place or blockchain in a place to bring that into the forefront. So like you can imagine, like, okay, you have a certain Sapien reputation store, you have a certain Kaido leaderboard position, you have a certain element of Zora market activity, you're holding certain NFTs, and that unlocks like specific customizations on certain websites or different app experiences. And so these are the things I get really excited about, because that is the promise of internet that I'm looking forward to. Right now, something we don't talk about, but is really obviously happening, is we're drowning in an ocean of apps, and like our digital identity is split to the frickin' winds. And these apps are created with unique languages, and created to keep you captive within the centralized powers control of, we release these apps and these functions within our network, but if you want to go outside of that, you know, you're SOL. Like blockchain really challenges that the same way open source challenged the model of cost to pay for access to things. So like I see this as, you know, we went from, you know, cost applications into open source applications. We went from on-prem to cloud. We're now going from centralized to decentralized. It's inevitable.
Billy, any thoughts?
Yeah. Two thoughts. One is on something that Ben just said, where I think just to also kind of frame what we're trying to do is like, we kind of want to also just be an aggregator of some of those data points. So you have like one place to look for them. It's like, how do I, you know, you got the Kaido score, you got the GitHub passport, Bitcoin passport, you got WorldCoin eyeball scan, you got Sapien score, you got KYC from bank, you got passport from US government. Like where's the one spot I can go to get all of it? And I hope the answer at one point is like intuition. Like we don't want to do the scores. We're not interested in doing the scores ourselves. It's like, hey, post this, once you have the score, post it over here so that people can find it. So we're kind of data liquidity network. Thank you for the name. It's like get the data to where it needs to be very easily. Like, so it's like, how do you even know that stuff exists if you're not like a crypto native? Like, where's the a la carte menu of reputation scores I can choose from to kind of aggregate together into a universal reputation? Hopefully that's kind of what we're trying to solve. And then on the topic of like governance generally, I think, and maybe this is a little bit of kind of a weave, but like I think that the governance mechanisms of crypto are actually like very, especially there's a dire need for them in the future of the internet, and I think it's being overlooked right now. And I think, to me, what's really scary is a centralized governance model of AI where think of the flow that's happening right now. No one's doing research anymore. They are prompting AI and they're taking what they get back as the canonical truth. It's like whoever controls that controls the world. They can control history, they can control facts, they can control what you see and what you don't see. Like no one should be able to own that. Like that puts them in the most extreme position of power. And then you extrapolate it out a little bit further and imagine we're performing all our actions through the AI. It's like, oh, buy me a chair. And now it knows my preferences. It chooses the right chair. But like, what if they control which platforms you can buy from and which items you can? They're gonna make sure you buy the one that sponsors them, and then they control the flow of commerce. And so the way that I view society, like the transactions that occur within society, there's kind of two variables, and crypto solved one of them already. One variable is value exchange. So we decentralize that. We decentralize store of value. We decentralize money. We decentralize payment rails. That's one piece of the equation. The other piece of the equation is, what do I buy? Or like, what do I do generally? Like, which movie do I watch? Which podcast do I listen to? Which chair do I buy? To whoever controls the information controls that variable. And right now, it is all centralized, and it's increasingly centralizing, where it's like the only way you can do information discovery online right now is through a centralized intermediary. You do it through Google, you do it through Yelp, you do it through OpenAI. There's no like peer-to-peer information discovery aside from text messages. Maybe like I guess you can consider that like mostly peer-to-peer, but you're still kind of going through the whatever platform you're using. But we can only decentralize so much. But still, it's like things are being filtered. And I just think that in this world where we're kind of not doing the research as much, we're not context switching across different platforms to kind of see what all the opinions are out there, it becomes really dangerous. And you could very quickly enter this dystopia where these guys literally just control whatever we think and what we do. So we, in my mind, we like quite literally need decentralized governance mechanisms for the whole stack.
100%. Yeah, I mean, and you see that with OpenAI already. Like they just hired a CEO of apps really focused on commerce or something like that. That was like a couple months ago, and they're just like, they want to own how you spend money online, basically, and what you buy. And I couldn't agree more about like the alignment piece and the need for decentralized governance and making sure that the way that AI is developed is in line with the goals of humanity, especially as we like march our way towards AGI and ASI. Like, right, whether there's one or multiple forms of that, we're not really going to be wondering so much anymore, like, what can it do? What can it not do? Like, it can do everything, but it's like, okay, if it can do that, how do we make sure it's not doing things for its own benefit, but instead for the benefits of us, not for the benefit of its creators, right? And so, I don't know, I think that that's critical. And in terms of, I do think like agent swarms and, some of these decentralized infrastructures for AI are the necessary counterpoint. I just hope it's like not too late before we can build the stuff we need to build to actually implement those before AI develops so fast. I feel like that's the future we're collectively building against, right? And it's like we need to execute fast and in a decentralized way to actually make sure we get there in time. And I like think back to Billy, like when we were building Uport and some of these other systems, like historically, like and even with decentralized social media and stuff, right? It's always been like, we're going to create a decentralized alternative to something that already exists, but we're fighting against the incumbents and the historical behavior and the inertia behind that. It's like decentralized isn't enough to take everyone from Twitter and get them onto something else. But with AI and agents, it's like a new frontier. Like there isn't those incumbent systems yet where we need to like make it so much better. We just need to provide a viable alternative and like start to demonstrate some of that value. I think you both are doing that already. And
I
so
think the technology has to speak for itself. I think if there's not like immediate value, like if you're David Goliath matching against centralized powers, you better come with a bunch of rocks. I don't know if that analogy helped, uh, but yeah, I think the problem has been like us in the decentralized world, in the crypto world, thinking it's cool because it was decentralized in crypto, but like functionally doesn't stand up against those monoliths. And so if we're going to do it better, it's got to solve a real problem. It's like with Sapien, it's like that we see the problem of scaling human frontier knowledge as not something that you can do in a centralized way. And this is like a really strong place for us to plant a flag. But I think there's so much in terms of AI we need to explore before jumping to AGI. For those not familiar, generalized intelligence, like the AI that does everything, and we need these modules that do certain things incredibly well. And the intelligence aspect of that, like what separates it from just another app, is it to move dynamically and grow and mature as an application without a whole lot of dev cycles and input. And so if we can master that specifically, then maybe we can open a little bit more of Pandora's box by introducing agents to agents and things like that. But I think that's why you see a lot of focus right now just in the finance sector of can we master bots that outperform Wall Street? If we can do that, we can do anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just gonna say I think that there's like for anyone who like is listening and gets it, there's like an imperative for us to build this stuff fast. Like there is a sense of urgency, and I think that there's like a limited subset of the population that kind of can see the direction that things are going. And I think the people in crypto, especially like early crypto people who've been around for a while, like can see the future before everyone else sees the future. And like if you can see the future before everyone else sees the future, you have an imperative to like make sure that it kind of goes in the right direction. And I think that like it's so important that the stack that this stuff is built on does not result in extreme centralization of power, or else we end up in probably a crazy dystopia that's really hard to disrupt. Like as Mr. Data Liquidity just said, it's like it's still early to the point where we have a chance, we have a fighting chance. But once they get more and more entrenched, it's going to be really hard to fight against them. So we're kind of at the beginning, and I think we have to make sure that the foundational pillars that all this stuff is built on is built like the right way, like from just a general, I guess right is a very hard word to define, but just like from a system that's kind of resilient to attacks. Just kind of like that's kind of, we're good at doing that in crypto. It's like, how can we make sure that this system that's going to be controlling the world is as resilient as possible to malicious actors? And so yeah, just kind of like we gotta get to work. we need more people. Like it's so crazy that it's crazy to me that there's only a handful of people thinking about this stuff, handful of people working on this stuff. When we shout out into the ether, it's like, we got our little communities, but this should be, in my mind, this should be a way bigger topic of conversation. But the philosophical narrative only goes so far. So you got to build good experiences, because the philosophical narrative will not resonate with everyone. But for the builders who the philosophical narrative resonates with, like you have an imperative to get to work and get their hands on the keyboard and doing things.
You took me right to the wrap up, because I know we only have like a couple minutes here, but in various ways, we're all building different parts of this stack, right? That does provide a better alternative to humanity. A lot of it powered by decentralization and on-chain guardrails. Ben building data labeling, powered by labeler reputation, human reputation of objective things. Billy, you're building a decentralized graph and information network powered by identities and reputations of all kinds of things that intersect. Basically, you are what you say, you are what you do, you are what you consume type of situation. You are what people say about you too, to some extent. And us at Recall trying to build sort of like reputation based on actual performance of AI systems, not what OpenAI claims it can do or what it trained its model specifically to do, but what people need it to do and how does it do at those things. So how do we think about working together on some of these topics, right? Like if the ecosystem is small, and in order to realize this vision, like a lot of pieces have to come together, like what are some actionable steps people or builders can take when thinking about building agents or integrating systems or training their agents? Like what actionable things should people be doing, and how can they max leverage the tools available to them?
Yeah, I think I think partnerships and collaboration are really important at this stage, and having mindshare in sitting in roundtables like this, and really having diverse perspectives from people building. We're all thinking about different elements of this, and I think there is a risk of trying to come in and boil the ocean versus solving these problems incrementally. And so it's great when we can have several people working on different elements, but like sharing a vision for what the future can be. And to Billy's point of us being, in a lot of ways, futurists and arriving at this technology at this stage, and wanting to innovate and build, I think there's a huge appetite to surround ourselves with like-minded people, and have others challenge us with really pressing questions in terms of like, what are we doing to address security? What are we doing to address privacy? What are we doing to avoid centralization and recreating the same problems of the old guard? I welcome that kind of discourse in our day to day, and I look for it also with other projects that maybe are building something similar to what we're building in a different way, and just trying to be competitive about it. I think competition is really good at this stage.
Yeah, I think coordination is our superpower, and like if you think about it, it's really not David versus Goliath, because if we look at all the people building at this intersection of like crypto and AI together, it's a pretty strong force. Like I think like a force that could rival the big tech institutions. And if you view any one group individually, yeah, it's like, what's our 12-person team going to do against Google? Like nothing. We're screwed. But if we kind of are all building different pieces of this composable puzzle, I think it will all come together into like something that is actually just generally better than what any one of these single centralized groups can offer, because of the diversity, because of everyone able to pursue the thing that they know is important for this stack to be the best that it can be. So I think that's kind of the superpower. And I'd say like two things that we need. One thing is a container for all of it to kind of like feel like maybe one movement. And we kind of started this AI sovereignty alliance that like maybe can be that container. But I think just people viewing things a little bit more holistically, and then allowing people to like external contributors to come in and figure out which piece they might want to work on is really important. Like a map of all the stuff that everyone's doing. And then it's like, oh, I'm interested in that one, I'll go help out here. Or if you have a new idea that nobody's working on, then you can kind of add it to the puzzle. But I think something like that could be, I don't know, just thought of that, but I think that could be super important.
Cool. Well, I think we're out of time. Any things to wrap up before we call it for this episode?
This was really fun, Billy. We need to discuss partnering.
Yes, let's do it.
I partner with everybody.
Look, it's happening right here. You all saw it first. We're actually partners with both of you guys, so beat you to it, Ben. Yeah. But thanks for taking the time, chatting, sharing some insights with the community. I think we've got over 2,400 views on X already. So hopefully this reaches a bunch of people, inspires some more builders, gets people involved. But yeah, thanks for the time, Ben, Billy, and Luca, who was here for the first half. We'll see y'all next